welcome to this video about the international phone number element for Superforms. This element is available in the latest version of Superforms, which is version 5.0.100 at the time of recording. So let's go ahead and create a new form via Superforms create form. And once you do so, you can go over to form elements and drag and drop the phone number element to the canvas and go ahead and edit the element. This phone number element is by default set to field type int-phone for entering international phone numbers. And as you can see, it comes along with a couple of extra settings. And if you change it to a different field type, you will see that those settings are removed and no longer available. So that's a thing to note. So go ahead and set the field type to int-phone. Now you have a couple of options, for instance, preferred countries. Now, if you have like many users that are from a specific country for your application, then you can, for instance, have these countries at the top of this list. So by default, all the countries are listed and they are in alphabetic order. And if you want to have a couple of countries at the top, you can enter the two-letter codes, separate them by comma. So for instance, if you want the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany at the top, you can enter NL, BE, DE. And when you update the elements, you will notice the flag already changed and the country code already changed. So in this case, you will see the 3 countries at the top and all the others below that. Now, one thing to keep in mind, as you can see, this is the specific order the countries will be listed in. So in this case, the Netherlands is at the top, which also means that whenever the form is loaded, the Netherlands will be the default selected country. So that's one thing to keep in mind as well. Now, another option is to only display the following countries. So by default, all the countries are listed now. That's maybe not what you want, and maybe you only need a couple of countries. So let's say you only want the Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. Then you can enter the same way as you enter preferred countries. You can enter NL, BE, DE. And when you update the element, you will notice that in this case, the first one isn't ordered, so the list is still ordered in alphabetic sorting. So Belgium is also the default selected country in this case. So you have Belgium, Germany, Netherlands. Now, if you don't want this, you can set it to you can define the Netherlands in the preferred countries. So for instance, just NL, update, and now you see that the Netherlands is the default selected country. Now, another setting is the type of number to be used as the placeholder. Now, what this does is, as soon as you select a country, you notice that the placeholder changes. So each country has a different format for their phone numbers, or at least the type of phone number. In this case, it's a mobile phone number. So when you switch, for instance, to the Netherlands, you can see an example of what the user should fill out. So this is very useful for the user to remember or to remind them on the format they should enter. So that's one thing that's kind of good to know. So if you want to change this, you could. So for instance, you could change it to voice over IP or to a voicemail format, but by default it's set to mobile. And there's another option which allows you to translate the the country names. So, for instance, now Belgium is still in the Belgium is in the English version, but in many cases the countries also have their the translation behind that. So, but maybe you don't want that, and then you can still enter the country letter code followed by a pipe, and a pipe is basically a backslash, but you hold the shift key, so shift backslash will generate a pipe. So let's say Belgium, you want them all in English, so let's say NL Netherlands and Germany DE Germany. So you will want to place each on a new line, by the way. So once you've done that and you update the element, you will notice that they are all translated with just the English version. So it's a little bit more compact, you could say. So that's an option you have as well. Well, if you leave it blank, you can do so as well. It will use the default. It will, well, I think it doesn't update in the backend, but on the front end, I will show you the front end actually. Let me create a new page. International phone number. Okay, hold on. View page. So yeah, this is by default. So you will see the English version on the left and the translated version for that specific country on the right. So let's say if I remove this field as well, we will have the Netherlands still as the default selected country, but you will see like the other countries, they have that translation in between the brackets basically. So that's how that works. And one other thing I want to cover is the validation of the international phone number. By default, it's set to required field, which means if I would try to submit this form, I'm not able to because I have to enter the phone number. So let's say I enter a phone number 12345. Obviously, this is not a valid phone number, so it still wouldn't allow me to enter it. But the field is at least filled out, right? So if you want to allow the user to actually skip the fields, which currently isn't possible, you will want to leave this option to be required, but change the allow fields to be empty to yes. This will allow the user to completely skip the fields without entering anything and still be able to submit the form. So that's sometimes required for specific fields because when the user actually fills it out, like for instance, you it's kind of useless for you. So you want to have at least a valid phone number when the field was filled out. So that's something to keep in mind. And by default, this setting is used. So the phone number will always be required, and the phone number uh, will have to be valid, a valid phone number, and it's not allowed to be empty. So that's something you can set up. But let's say you don't want that, you can set this to yes. And now if I save the form, I reload the form over here. Now I can just submit the form, as you can see, without any issues. But if I would fill out something, like say 123, it will not allow me because the phone is not valid. So I can't submit the form anymore. So that's something you want to keep in mind. You could change this to none to have no validation at all. But I think the international phone number is always, yeah, it's always required. Even if you set validation to none, it will still like do the validation for a valid phone number, so you can't really skip it if you set this to validation on. So if you really want the user to be able to skip this field, you have to set it to required field and then set allow field to be empty to no. Oh, sorry, to yes, obviously. Okay, so and then you can set a validation error message to your desire, but you could leave it empty as well. It's not a big issue because it will just honor the the default error message, which is field is required. So I'm not able to submit it now, but if I leave it empty, I will be able to submit the form as we configure it here. So yeah, that basically covers the international phone number element. If you have any questions or comments, or maybe if you want me to cover a different future within Superforms, which isn't maybe completely clear, or maybe you just want to have a demonstration of that, then let me know and maybe I can cover that as well in a different video. So yeah, that's it. Have a nice day and take care.